Welcome back to another episode of Saints in the Spotlight. I'm here with my illustrious co-host, Kellen Belknap. We are super excited for today because, folks, I am honored, privileged even, to welcome to the show Casey Elliott, a man who hits high notes on stage and big goals in the boardroom. Many of you know Casey as a founding member of the renowned tenor trio GENTRI, where he's helped top Billboard charts and generate hundreds of millions of views online. But he's far more than a chart-topping vocalist. Casey brings a passion, an intensity, and authenticity to everything that he does. Beyond music, he's an accomplished stage actor with standout roles like Jean Valjean in Les Mis, Joseph in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and more than 400 performances as Robbins. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
You got it.
Robbins across U.S. and international tours of Aida. On screen, he's appeared in multiple holiday films as well, including historical and faith-based productions, and you may have even seen him as a Roman soldier in season 4 of The Chosen. And if that wasn't enough, Casey is also a tech entrepreneur, the founder of a local government communications software company called Penny, all while keeping his faith and family at the center of it all. I've been privileged to connect with Casey on multiple occasions, and I've seen up close how his passion drives him. It's truly inspiring, and I owe him a great deal of gratitude for providing me guidance in times of need, as well as being an incredible role model. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the man who truly does it all, Casey Elliott.
Wow.
What an intro.
What an intro. Gosh, I feel inadequate suddenly. I feel like I'm going to let people down now. Just downhill from here, folks.
If anything, expectations can only be exceeded.
We'll see. Well, thanks, guys, for having me.
Yeah, we are super excited to have you on. Is there anything you want to add after that I missed?
I did. No, thank you. I'm gonna go set some new goals now for myself.
That motivation.
All right. Well, Casey, I want to get us started off with a pretty deep question here, and it's: what is your message, and who are you trying to share it with?
That's a good question. You know, I think my like life goal, my message, at the end of the day that I want to share with people is I want to uplift people. And there's so many ways to do that. You know, my faith is a big part of that. Like I've always been a believer. Like I always have been, I guess, blessed with just faith and kind of like, I wouldn't say unshakable, because I don't think any faith is 100% unshakable, but I've been blessed with the gift of belief, and so that underpins a lot of what I do, because I don't separate my faith from the rest of my life and what I do. Like I think that they're one and the same. And so at the end of the day, like I want to help people feel uplifted. I want to help people feel seen, loved, and ultimately bring them closer to God, who is the source of all love, right? Closer to Jesus Christ. And like, that might sound cheesy to some, but I really do believe that the source of light and truth and love is Jesus Christ. And so it's like, why, if you believe that, why wouldn't you want to bring people closer to that? Because I know that if I can do that in some way, whether it's music or even like business and the different things that I do to help people feel a little bit more uplifted, their lives are going to be better. They're going to be happier. So yeah, that's like, I think my overarching motivation.
I love that. Just kind of like I don't know, because I feel like a lot of people don't understand how much you can just like integrate your faith, like what you're saying, integrate your faith into all aspects of your life, and it will help you, it'll help others, it'll help your success even, because it's truly like you're just sharing the light of Christ with people. And I mean, who doesn't want that? Come on. That's really cool, Casey.
Yeah, I get like people are on different parts of the journey, and some people don't believe, and like that's totally okay. That's just part of life and the journey that we're all on. But, if I can help somebody come just a little bit closer wherever they are in that journey, it's going to be good. It's going to be good for them. I know that. And so it's like, I totally get that everybody's in different places and has different beliefs. And so, yeah, again, my hope is just to bring people a little bit closer to the source of love.
Amen.
Yeah, I love that.
At what point in your life did you decide that this was what you wanted to do for the rest of your life?
Well, I'm kind of a schizophrenic, so I'm still trying to decide what it is I want to do, what I want to be when I grow up. Um, like I have too many interests and too many passions, right? I'm really hoping AI can solve this cloning thing. That would be really great. Or maybe just like maybe just sleep. Like if we could figure out how to skip that part, then I think I could do everything that I'm trying to do. Uh, no, like I come from a musical family. My parents are like 80s rock band people. I'm from Southern California, so I grew up in the 80s and 90s with them doing music, right? My mom is an amazing singer. My dad's a film composer. And I knew that music was going to be a part of my life from a very young age. I always loved to sing. I didn't know that acting was going to be a passion until about the 8th grade. I took a speech and drama class, and the English teacher at my junior high, we didn't have like a theater program at the junior high. It was just like part of the English class, basically. And we had to memorize a Shakespearean monologue. And most of the kids were like, they didn't take it that seriously. They were like reading a paper in the front of the class. And I, being the nerd that I am, I was like, I'm going to memorize this thing. I'm going to take this seriously. And so I totally like milked it, got up. I think I even came in some level of costume. It was a Hamlet monologue. And I was just like so into it. And after that, or my speech and drama teacher, he was like, "Hey, you should keep doing this. I think you have something there. You're pretty talented." And that little bit of encouragement was what allowed me to have the confidence to keep trying things. And so when I got into high school and the theater program there, I was totally hooked. And I had an amazing theater teacher at Woods Cross High School, Janet Cook, or Janet. And she just made it fun. She was passionate about it. She put her blood, sweat, and tears into the productions, that we did at school. And so I was just kind of engrossed in this theater stuff. And it's interesting, like I said, I've always had faith and kind of this testimony that God lives, that Jesus Christ lives, that it's true. Like the things we know about Jesus Christ, like they're true. I've always had that belief. And I've always strongly felt that entertainment is such a powerful medium to influence people for good or for bad. And I wanted to be able to use my talents and my passions for acting, for singing, for the good part of it, right? And the more I got into it, the more I realized, like, wow, that's an uphill battle. Like it's definitely like an uphill battle because it seems like there's a little bit more bad than good in the entertainment space. And after high school, I went to the school in Hollywood, the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I being in that environment for even just a little while, I was like, oh man, this is rough. Being a kid from grew up in Bountiful, Utah, I was like culture shock, you know. But I went shortly after that. I went on a mission, and when I came back, I was like, you know what, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm just going to try. I'm just going to keep trying to like influence the world for good through the entertainment that I can be involved with. And so that's kind of what I tried to do, and you're chipping away at it. It's kind of like that analogy of that guy walking along the beach with all like the little starfish, and he's like throwing one at a time back in, and somebody's like, what are you doing? Like, you can't possibly like even make a dent with all these things. Right. And he's just like, well, mattered to that one, I just threw in. So that's kind of like how I feel, is if it's just like one at a time. If I can influence one person at a time, then great.
Yeah, I really, really love that because it's so true. I feel like, coming from a theater background myself and loving that side of my personality, and I love performing, I love to sing, but yeah, it's tricky. There's a whole other world that is so far removed from this little bubble that we live in the Idaho and Utah, and it is really challenging. And one thing that's always stuck with me, I remember I had a director that she was so kind, so very kind. It was my first production outside of high school, and she said, "You can't expect any change in the industry if people aren't going into the industry to drive any change, and otherwise it'll stay the same." And I think we're seeing quite a bit of that right now. There's been a huge shift. I think people are craving more of that family-friendly content. I think Angel Studios is starting to become a big player, competitive player, which is awesome to see. And so I think there's a market for it, and people are starting to realize that. And I think it's going to help a lot of people, a lot of actors come up through that one.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's super encouraging to see Angel and even like A-list actors that are just like being a little bit more outspoken and supportive of stuff like that. So it's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we get out of high school, you start pursuing, you want to go into these arts, and then you come down to the place called the Hale Center and do a show called Les Mis, where you meet two other incredible guys, Bradley Quinn and Brad Robbins.
Yeah.
So of those three, whose idea was it to start Gentri?
Well, it was none of our ideas. It was my wife's idea. So
very good woman, folks.
Yeah. So BQ and I were hanging out one night during Les Mis. We had some friends over visiting from out of town, and my wife had recently gone to an event, like a church type event, where she saw like a group of young guys before. It wasn't Vocal Point. It was just some other group. And she thought it was cool. And she looked at us and she's like, "Hey, I mean, you guys aren't like young kids anymore. Like I was like 30, you're not boy band material, but maybe you could start like a man band."
Man band.
And it was funny because like at first we were like, "Oh, eye roll," like the world doesn't need another boy band / man band from Utah. But the more we started talking about it, it was interesting. One of our friends that was visiting, I had toured with in Aida. She was from LA, and she was like, "You know what? You know what's interesting about that is like you guys could kind of like, because you're all family men, you're men of faith, you're trying to like be good men and courteous and kind to everybody." She's like, "It'd be cool if you could do music, but kind of like stand for something, like being gentlemen." And when she said that, I was like, actually, that is kind of cool. I like that idea because not only does it give us something to shoot for as men, like a standard that we can continue to work toward. I was like, actually, I think the world does kind of need this. It needs people who stand for like the classic old school type things of just being a gentleman. Like in some circles of society, that idea is like scoffed at. Like, how dare you open doors for people? And like, we're women are perfectly capable to do this or that. It's like, no, it's like, of course they are, but also like, it's okay to be kind and courteous and generous and all of these things. And so that's the thing for me that kind of sparked it. Of like, actually, I love this idea. I have no idea what this means and how it's going to work and how it's going to look. But the very next day, I called Steven Nelson. And actually, no, the very next day, I called another guy that was in Les Mis, and actually wasn't Brad at the time. It was another guy. Yeah. So we don't talk about this because like it's just easier to say like, yeah, we all met.
He's probably kicking himself in the pants every day.
No, like it's interesting because like the way that it came together was absolutely divine intervention. Because like this other guy, he's awesome. Like he was great voice. But so I talked to him, I talked to Steven agrees to do an arrangement for us. And we do that. We get together, we all sing it. And it's like, okay, yeah, there's something here. This is interesting. And then that guy gets cast in the tour of Beauty and the Beast. And he's like, guys, I know we're all excited about this thing, whatever this thing is. Like, we didn't have a name or anything, right? It's just like, I know we're all excited about this, but I got this opportunity. I'm going to take it. So he leaves on tour and we're like, well, do we keep doing this? Like, what do we do? And then as BQ and I were talking late one night, we both were like, actually, we should talk to Brad Robbins, because he was playing Marius in Les Mis. And we're like, oh yeah, actually. And I remember thinking to myself, because we were in the same cast, and so I would hear him night after night sing, Empty Chairs, Empty Tables, and these songs. And I was like, you know what? He is one of the most consistent singers I know. Like,
yes,
just so consistent, like every single night, just nailed it with the same level of quality. I'm like, okay, I love this idea. And I loved him as a person. Like, I had met Brad Robbins years earlier in Beauty and the Beast, actually. I played Lumiere and he was the Beast.
No way.
This was at like the old Rogers Memorial Theater in Centerville. This was like 2005. This is before his mission.
Holy cow.
I had just gotten married. He was pre-mission. Then he went to Russia on his mission. So like we lost touch for years. Like basically that like almost 10-year span between Beauty and the Beast and Les Mis. And so then when we were in Les Mis together, we just like totally reconnected and hit it off. Like we both graduated in business, he from BYU and I graduated from Weber State. And so like we just connected on like a lot of things, right? So I was like, I love that idea. Let's talk to Brad. So get this. This is the crazy thing. We had posted on social media this thing with the three of us, like with that other guy, where it was like, kind of like a silhouetted thing. And it said like, something's coming. Like just kind of teasing the idea out of that. Like we were starting something. And it's funny because we said something coming and we were like, yeah, something's coming. We don't know what, but we'll...
It's going to be a surprise for us too.
Yeah. So when we figure it out, we'll let you know. But he tells us now, when he saw that post, he remembers thinking to himself, I have to be in this. I have to be in this group. He's like, I don't know how it's going to happen, but I have to be in this group. And he had kind of felt this like impression growing up that he was going to do some kind of music thing like this. And I think that's part of why he just felt like, okay, I just feel totally moved right now that I'm going to be in this group. I don't know how, but I'm going to do it. And so when I called him and I was like, hey man, we're doing this thing. I'm this other guy, like he's going on tour. We have a gig. And I'm wondering if you'd be willing to come fill in, and, like you don't have to commit to being in it or anything, but if you're willing to learn a couple of arrangements, we've got this gig. And he's like, yes, I'll do it.
No hesitation.
Yeah. He was totally like, he was just blown away that I had called, given the thoughts and impressions that he had just like totally in private. So he came in, we did this gig and it was very clear. It's like, okay, he's the guy. And it's interesting, like all the guys in Gentri, Brad Robbins, Brad Lieber, Steven, me, like we all have these different skill sets that have kind of like allowed us to do what we've done from a content creation standpoint, business standpoint, marketing, obviously Steven on the music, like all the pieces were there within the four of us in order to make this work the way that it has. And Brad brought a very important piece of that. And so I don't think we could have done what we've done without Brad. So it really was like divine intervention.
Wow. The master weaver at work. Freaking
100%.
love that. That's so cool. That's so cool. You mentioned something about how you guys kind of like, I guess, split up responsibilities with like all your different talents and everything. Mm-hmm. So which one was yours? Was yours business or marketing?
Yeah. So, more on the business side, the operations side of things, marketing. Like I graduated in marketing and entrepreneurship from Weaver State, and then also like the narrative video stuff. Like I've written most of the narrative video scripts and directed those, like just because I love film and I love writing stories and acting and producing, and so that's been fun for me to kind of oversee. But yeah, my role is either on that sort of creative side of things with the videos, or kind of the more the business operations side.
Yeah. Okay. So with so you form Gentry. You have now the group that's there, and I do know that your first performance, it was at like an outdoor amphitheater.
Yeah,
I remember watching your podcast. You said it was super windy. Like it was and you fortunately arrived a few hours early.
Yeah. So this is the gig that I mentioned that
That's
we
the gig.
This
no
is
way.
This is our first gig, and we were supposed to sing like 3 songs, because we that's all we had. Like we literally only had like 3 songs that we could even sing, and one of them was a theater song, one of them was a hymn, and one of them was like an 80s mashup. And yeah,
your average repertoire,
just, it really flowed naturally, trust me. So we were so excited and nervous that we wanted to get there early, just to like check it out, make sure everything was set and everything was good to go. It was like a fundraiser type event for a cancer organization. And this was in Layton, Utah, in an outdoor amphitheater, the Kenley Amphitheater. So we get there, we're getting out of the car, and we hear over the loudspeaker, "Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to introduce Gentry." And we're like, we all stop in a second. We're like, did they just say Gentry? And so we're literally frozen in the parking lot, like listening. And then we hear again,
Oh boy.
"Do we have Gentry here?" And we're like, oh my gosh. And so like we somehow, like the time had gotten miscommunicated. And so we just start running toward the stage. We show up and they're like, "Oh, there they are." And the whole audience like looks at us, like it is right out of a movie, like level 10 awkwardness. And we get on stage and they don't have a piano. These are things that like we had tried to communicate ahead of time. They don't have a piano, and they have 1 microphone. So
love it.
So we go
to
the guy. We're like, "Hey, we kind of need a piano to do our thing, and we need 2 more microphones." And so they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, we'll go round some stuff up." So they like wheel this upright piano out from the green room, and like bring out a couple more microphones. And all during this time, like they're trying to stall, and it's like super windy, and there's like kids running around. There's all these balloons. And so the balloons are flying away. Kids are screaming and crying. Kids are like climbing up on the stage, and some of them like falling off and then like getting hurt. And this is like during our performance. And so there's like chaos and carnage happening all around us.
You guys are just trying to spread some joy. You guys just like,
Yeah.
"Oh, guys."
And here we are singing, going from an 80s mashup to "Guide Me to Thee,"
Yeah.
It was
boy.
great. It was really great. There was only up from there. Like the only way up. The only path from that first performance was up. So.
Oh my goodness! Really just hit bedrock with that first performance.
So
funny.
It was good. It humbled us.
Yeah, that's funny. That's a fun story though. That's a fun story. Oh my gosh.
So with that, after that's your first gig as a group. You're already super excited. Then you have that happen. What possesses you to keep moving forward and be like, you know what? We can still do this. Like, were there any moments where you're like, man, is this really going to be what we're going to try to do with our lives for the next however many years? Like,
yeah. I have to give credit. I have to give credit to Deseret Book and Bart Olson over there at Deseret Book on this next part, because like we knew we had this vision, and we wanted to do music that was powerful and theatrical. We had this vision of like performing with symphonies and orchestras someday. And the question is always like, okay, well, how do we get from here to there? And often in business, you need partners. You need key partners in the early days to do that, to tap into certain audiences, to just fill in the gaps where you might be deficient. And so my wife, having gone to this Desert Book event and that being kind of the impetus for this idea, the thought that we had was like, okay, so she saw this performing group at the time it was called Time Out for Women. And they were these like big multi-day events that Desert Book would put on around the country in different markets. So this like, anywhere from Utah markets to San Antonio and Cincinnati and Oregon, like all these places. And so the thought we had is, oh, I wonder if we could partner with Desert Book to kind of tap into those events because they have speakers, they have music. And so I scheduled a meeting with Bart Olson. And I remember this like so clearly. It was just he and I. We met at, what's that restaurant in Salt Lake? They serve like clam chowder, Market Street Grill. So we meet at Market Street Grill. And we didn't have like a website. We didn't have like materials. We didn't have any recordings. Like we had nothing. And so I print out the headshot, like the theater headshots for each of us. I'm like, okay, Bart, picture this. And like, I pitch him on this idea of this group, which by the way, we still didn't have a name. We didn't have a name. We didn't have identity. We just had an idea. So I'm like, okay, so here we are, these three guys. We have theater backgrounds. We have a lot of experience in front of people on stages. What if we put something together that you could plug us into Time Out for Women and we could come and, be the musical act as part of these events that you do. And, it's like we've all submissions, like we have testimonies, like we could speak and we could sing. And I'm just like hard selling him on this idea. And he was like intrigued. And so he took that back and like ran it by his team and they liked the idea enough to be like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And so that in the early days, that plugged us into a channel. And that's like so important for music, but really any business, right? You need a channel. You need to get into some kind of like channel and network. And so what that did is it exposed us to thousands of people the first few years of Gentri, where we not only were performing in front of people, but afterwards we would sign albums. We would sell a lot of albums. It actually, because of the events and because so many albums were purchased at those events, and those were, this is like 2014, 15. So it's still in the days of like people somewhat buying albums. That allowed us to chart on Billboard. And so we got some like industry cred and recognition because we were selling so many albums that we got like #1 Billboard artists. And now we could start to like put that on things, and so it kind of created some market validation. But yeah, I mean, it was a great partnership early on. And it's, eventually we kind of like, we each kind of grew out of each other and we sort of mutually recognized that, and they were cool and we were cool. Like we just sort of like moved on and kept going our way. But yeah, early on, like 100%, they were such an important partner for us to just get in front of a lot of people.
Wow. That's really cool. And I think it paints the reality of how important networking, I think, is in really any industry, specifically the music industry. And it also paints like, starting a career like this, starting a music career, it's hard. It's more than just let's write some songs and sing. It's like, no, there's a whole business side that people do not want to hear about. And so along with those same lines, when it comes to the business side, what do you think is one of the most like underlooked things with the industry? Or like what was one of the first things that you guys realized that you had to do that you weren't expecting to?
I mean, it's true. Like a lot of people think about a group like Gentri or anything that you do in performance, and they're like, I mean, yeah, what do you guys do all day? It's like, because isn't it just like you just show up and sing? And anybody who runs any kind of business understands that there's so much that goes on behind the scenes to make it all work. um, I think the reality is, you just have to be willing to put in the time and the work and the effort. Like, especially in the early days, like we met every day. Like, we would work all day in our normal jobs, and then we'd meet at night and we'd work on stuff. We'd rehearse, we'd work on business stuff. We'd work on content. Like, there's just a never ending task list of stuff to do. And what that requires is a lot of sacrifice, because you're working all day every day basically. um and we all had full-time jobs and like careers and stuff, and so we didn't just like all quit our jobs from day one. Like, we did both for the first 5-6 years. And we all went full-time Gentry a few years before COVID, and then COVID hit, and then we all went back and kind of went back to the corporate, entrepreneurial world, and including trying to still do Gentry. So yeah, I think that like the biggest surprise for people might just be um, the day-to-day grind. Like, you have to just know that it's going to be work. And the thing that sets most people apart, especially in music, it's really simple. It's those who quit versus those who don't quit. Like, that literally is the it factor, outside of like being more talented and all of these things. Like, if you just don't quit, chances are you'll be more successful than the vast majority. Because like, at the end of the day, a lot of people just can't sustain what's needed to make it successful, to make it work, because it's hard. And so they end up bailing. Which is understandable. Like, it's not for everybody. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody. So if you're going to go into music, if you're going to try to do a thing, you have to understand it's entrepreneurship. It's a business. It's not going to make enough money to probably pay your bills and support your family. So you're going to be doing other jobs and other things as well. And you just kind of have to sign up for the fact that you're going to be working 16-hour days. And so if that's not for you, or you can't sustain that for years and years, that's okay. It's not for everybody, but that's kind of what it takes.
Yeah, I think back to something that you told me probably like 2 years ago or so, when we were doing Joseph at the Eccles, and you talked about this idea of you said that you were in positions where you had to have music be your source of income, versus when you were able to not have it be a worry. And you said how much more enjoyable it was able to be in that way. When it's not
Totally.
putting bread on the table, you can just enjoy it. And I think that's I feel like a lot of younger musicians, they're like, oh, I just want to be a musician and tour and do nothing else. It's like, when you turn your passion into your job, it starts to lose some of that excitement behind it. And I feel like you found a really, really good balance with how you structure your life, which is really cool.
Totally. Yeah. Like, I enjoy music more, and I enjoy business more when I'm doing both. And that's just me. That's the balance that works for me. And I also have always loved the idea, especially as an actor, there's doing plays and doing film. I always love the idea of not being dependent on acting, because I want to be able to say no. And I say no to a lot of projects. But if I was 100% dependent on those projects to support my family, it'd be a lot harder for me to say no. And so I think that's one of for me, again, everybody's different, but for me to remain faithful and to maintain a certain like standard of things that I like want to do and don't want to do in acting, I have to be able to say no and have it be okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, not having the financial burden makes that a lot easier.
Yeah. You brought up something interesting. You said how early days Gentry, you were selling a lot of albums because people were still buying albums. It was still early days of streaming, not quite a thing. So if you guys were restarting today, what would you guys do differently?
That's a good question. Um, I mean, I think that social media was around obviously when we started, but I feel like it's become even more. It's become even easier to create a niche and to create and build a following on social media. And so I'd probably, and assuming we didn't have kind of a clear path to get inserted into an existing channel like the Time Out for Women tour, I think I would just focus more on social media and creating and releasing content. Yeah, I was actually thinking about this earlier because I was like, not this specific question, but I was like, if I was going to give somebody advice who's just starting out, like what to do, I think you have to really just commit to creating content you're passionate about. Like there is an audience for everything. And some audiences are smaller than others, and that's okay. Like you're not going to like you don't have to be a superstar. Like everybody's not going to be a superstar. Everybody's not going to be an A-lister. And I think if you try to go after that from the beginning, then you're not doing things that really resonate with you. You're trying to fit into something that maybe isn't you. Um, and I early on, actually, I read this interesting article when we were just starting Gentry that was called like The Power of 1,000 Fans. And the whole article was about like, you don't have to get millions of fans to make a career in music. You have to get 1,000 evangelists, basically 1,000 people who will buy anything you put out, come to every concert, stream every single thing that you put out, follow and like your social media. Like it's like fanatics, right? You need 1,000 of those people. And this was like, maybe more for a solo artist or something. So whatever that number is, like 1,000 or 5,000, doesn't really matter. It's not millions. Like you don't need millions. You need a niche of people who are fanatical about what you do. So if you can find what you're passionate about and what you're good at, and then just like commit to that and commit to releasing stuff every single day of you doing your thing, you will build an audience. I'm convinced of that. But again, the thing is like, what happens? People quit because it's a lot of work. It's too hard to commit to putting content out every single day and sometimes multiple pieces of content. And so you have to know what you're signing up for, that it's a lot of hard work and a lot of time. But, again, if you love what you do and you love sharing, that aspect of what you do, it's a lot easier.
Some people, I feel like they would see like 1,000, what you're explaining as evangelists, or like people who are just like super fans. I feel like a lot of people would see that and just find that so daunting. They're like 1,000 people. Like my family has only heard me sing. Like they're the only people who like have heard me
Yeah.
sing. And especially since like you talked about earlier in Gentry, you guys were you had the outdoor amphitheater and you guys were going on tours and everything. And now internet is such a big base for performers and entertainers to gain a following. I feel like, so how, like what content would you say is the most beneficial to put out? Just any content? It just matters on what you are doing, like who your following is, or is there kind of like a certain framework that you've seen where people can, I guess, be successful?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Let me give you a couple of like framework type points to think about. Number one is your channel. Like you have to own your channel. And what I mean by that is like direct access to this audience. You can't be only dependent on social media because the reality is you're at the mercy of algorithms on social media. And so when you put something out, especially organically, there's a very low percentage of your followers who actually see an average post. And so you need to make sure that you're getting email addresses, you're getting phone numbers. And once you have that direct access to people, that you're nurturing them directly and regularly, right? And that you're really like connecting with them. So that's one thing, more of just like a logistical thing, like own your channel, your direct channels, and start early, start from day one. If like I could go back and change anything with Gentry, it would be having more of a focus on getting email addresses and getting phone numbers from people. We were really focused on building our social media following, which is fine. There's value in that, but so much more value in having direct access to people.
Why is it more valuable than just to focus on social media versus having an owned audience?
Well, again, with social media, you don't own your audience and you don't own access to your audience. You have to ask social media platforms for permission to access your audience, right? Because you're at the mercy of algorithms. Actually, the platform-wide percentages of organic reach on social media, for Facebook, it's 2.6%. For Instagram, it's up to 4% if you're lucky. So what does that mean? It means that those platforms are pay to play, which makes sense. That's their business model.
Mhm.
Yes, they need content, but as soon as you are like a business and you want to have access to your following, they're like, pay up. Like, that's our business model. So you don't own access to your audience. Versus if you develop your own fan club, your own email list, text message list, you can access those people directly. And yeah, some people won't open the email, but that's your percentage of access to those own channels is a lot higher than social media. So social media, I look at as like the top of the funnel. It's a great way to bring in like people to the top of the funnel, but your goal is to convert people down to your own channels. And then the other thing on like your question with content, like what kind of content do you produce? Again, I think it's like anything that moves you, anything that you're passionate about, someone else will be passionate about. Like, that's just the reality. And so and that's actually a litmus test that I use, like when I write music video narrative scripts or whatever, or stories. If I'm sitting here and I'm thinking through the story and I'm thinking through of how it would look and how it would come together, and I'm emotionally moved by it, that's like, okay, good. That's good enough for me. It's like, I have no idea if people are also going to be moved by it, but if I am, then I'm okay with that, even if somebody else isn't. And so, like, I'm a huge believer in like figuring out what problem you're solving for people. You know, like, as a musician, as an artist, you're solving some problem. I mean, even this podcast that you guys are doing, you're solving some need, some problem that people have. And if you can clearly identify that and then constantly work toward creating solutions that solve that problem, like for GENTRI as an example, one of the problems we solve is people are yearning for peace. They're yearning for like, we call it nourishment for the soul, you know? And so a lot of our music is specifically designed and targeted to help people feel hope or peace or, you know, connection with loved ones or loved ones that have passed away and things like that. It's like we kind of laugh sometimes because we'll put something out that's meant to be like happy and joyful. And people will be like, I'm crying, like in the comments, like, oh, I'm sitting here at my computer just bawling. And we're like, I mean, that just shows that people they want emotional connection. They want to feel something, you know?
Mhm.
So yeah, I think if you focus on those two things, that really helps build your audience. And it takes time. You just got to be patient with it. But if you just commit and you keep doing it and you do it regularly, we call it feeding the beast. You just keep feeding the beast with your thing and content, you know, keep doing your podcast, keep doing it. You'll build an audience. Like, it's just a cause and effect.
Mhm. Right. I like what you were saying about like emotional connection with people, and I think just to go back to what you were saying about how important it is to like just get emails from people, get phone numbers from people, because I feel like when you meet someone in person, you remember them way more. Like a lot of people, I guess my non-business mind thinks like, oh, social media, you can access so much people in just such a short time, but those connections aren't really going to be that meaningful. But if you're like going out, you're with people, you're talking with them, that's when they're going to actually like remember you and build an emotional connection to you. And then they're going to be like, oh yeah, like these people, I remember meeting them. Now you might have a super fan who's maybe a super fan, but that's really
Well,
cool.
and that's one of the reasons why with Gentry we like this whole idea of like being a gentleman, because it's a cause. And it's something we felt like people could rally behind. And if you're going to create evangelists for your brand, and for your products, you need to give people something to get behind. You know, even if it's just more of like an emotional thing or a theoretical thing, like some cause that people can get behind. Like in the early days of Gentry, we used to say the litmus test for us to know if we like have made it from a branding standpoint would be if somebody got like a Gentry tattoo. Yeah. You know, like they are so bought into the Gentry idea that they tattoo it on their body. We haven't seen that, and it's probably a good thing. But we this was like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. We met this family after a show that came backstage, and they literally, like with tears in their eyes, they said, "Hey, come over here." Their son, who was like 7, his name was Gentry.
Really?
And
No
they named
way.
him after us. Like
Wow.
spelled the same way and everything. So we're like, you know what? We're gonna rescind our thing about the tattoo. And now like
Holy cow.
that's good enough.
I think that's better. That's
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
To
holy
get
cow.
your kid after a trio of
Yeah.
gentlemen.
We
that's
were so blown away and honored and like humbled by that.
That's probably, I don't know how many bands can say that they've had someone name their child after your group. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
So awesome.
Something I've been thinking about here, you talk a lot about messaging and branding and making sure you have a powerful message behind it. One of the big issues with, being a musician is this idea of like, okay, having the song, I have great music, I have a good message. How do I monetize it? And how do I monetize it without making it feel like I'm just saying, buy my stuff all the time? Like, what is that good, nice balance between story versus CTA?
It's a great question. I don't know that I don't know that we've like cracked the code on this, but here are just some guiding principles. One is you have to look at your content, and to some extent, almost like you're okay just giving it away for free, right? Your music videos, your content, because that's the top of the funnel. That's the core product. You're not selling anything really. You're just inviting people to experience your content essentially for free, right? Whether it's through streaming or online content. And just like any other business and like kind of sales or marketing funnel, you have to be patient just working people down. So it's like they may not be converted to a paying customer for months or years. They may just be a casual consumer of your products at kind of the free tier until at some point, maybe they have some experience or emotional connection with the song. Like what we hear a lot from our fans is, my mother died, my father died, or some hard thing happened, and this song helped me get through it. And so at that point, now that's like a deeper level connection, and they're probably more likely to want to buy a concert ticket or something to come experience live, what they've felt. And so I think you just have to be patient with that. And again, just kind of feed the beast and feed the top of that funnel with as much content as possible to resonate with people. And then make sure that you're setting up on your side, you understand what the conversion steps are, what that funnel looks like. It's like they go from here to here to here to here. And that's where your own channels become really important, because it's like, all right, we're going to get people engaging with us on social media. And then we're going to try to target people and convert them to some kind of free tier in your fan club. And that's going to give them X amount of value. And then from there, we're going to try to upsell them on like subscribing to one of the paid tiers in your fan club or whatever. Or we're going to put on a free show to like let more people who have followed us online experience what it's like in person. So you just have to like try a lot of things, but you need to define what that funnel and that flow looks like for you and your business.
Yeah, you would say that that's like networking, right? That's kind of like the networking side of it all.
I mean, yes, it never hurts to network, but I think what I'm describing is a little bit more like macro level of like what's your business model from a marketing standpoint, right? And how do you take people from the top of the funnel to the bottom being an evangelist? So there's different points within that funnel where they're going to pay you for your products and your services, but then that's not enough, right? Because the goal is to create evangelists, to create super fans. And so if you back into that, how do you create an evangelist? It's somebody who truly believes in your mission, truly believes in what you're doing. And the only way to do that is to give them opportunities to have deep emotional connections with what you do along the way. And so if you can sort of architect those key emotional connection points throughout their customer journey, then you're going to be way more likely to get them there. It's not just going to happen. That's what I guess what I'm saying is like, you have to think about it structurally and intentionally. And then as soon as you have the framework and you know what those steps are, then you can start feeding content that meets the goals of each of those steps.
Yeah. You're talking a lot about like, the whole funnel, this idea of, if you have a marketing funnel, you guys are on social media. On top of all that, you're still booking gigs, you're recording music. Like there are so many things that you guys are doing here. And early days, I know you guys said you started out with, it was like you guys had all the skills you needed to be able to start grow. At what point do you get too big where when do you need to start expanding your team? Like
Yeah.
when is it time to start growing?
Yeah, it's a good question. So as I mentioned, like because each of us brought kind of the needed skill sets that we needed to build Gentry initially, it was a little easier for us than like say a solo artist because we already had this like built-in team with just the artists that were involved. And so I think for us, we kind of went longer than most people could, just because we were able to run the business ourselves. That being said, we had a couple of friends that came in as like advisors that sort of helped us navigate a few things and make connections and even sort of act as like that separation between artist and the business side, because sometimes in negotiations or whatever it might be, you have to have a little bit of that separation because some venues or some promoters don't like to work directly with artists. So we would bring in friends and advisors to sort of like act as a quasi manager, to be that front. And we've always kind of worked with contractors and different things to help fill in needs. I think for us in the last few years, we've expanded our team and bringing people in and hiring people a little bit more because we are all focused on so many different things. Like I'm building a software company and I do a lot of film acting, and Steven's producing more artists, and the other Brads have their careers and kind of day jobs. And so we just feel like while we could do a lot of the things, we want to keep Gentry growing, but we just don't have as much capacity as maybe we used to. And so that's where it's like we're willing to give up some of our margin in order to, bring more team members in. So I think it's just like a balance. You're just going to have to kind of feel that out and figure out like, how much am I able to do from a margin standpoint of bringing people on compared to like, what does the rest of my life look like and how much am I willing to give up?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Mm.
Okay, I want to move in for the last last segment here of this show into really the core idea of what the show's about, which is faith in the spotlight. It's a big issue. It's a big thing that a lot of people think about. I've thought about it. Casey, I know that you've told me before, like you have some opinions on this as well. And so what is the first thing that you think of when people say you can't be successful without compromising who you are?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's true. Obviously, I think all it means is it might be a little harder to be successful and to not compromise. And it's interesting. Like I have this discussion with actor friends, some of whom are active in their church and their faith, who are able to make it work in their family and in their head in terms of like separating what they do on screen, compared to the standards they live in their own life. And I totally get their arguments. I think for me, like I just felt like if I start doing like, swearing more in films or doing sex scenes or like doing these things that I wouldn't want to watch personally, or I wouldn't want my kids to watch. I just feel like for me personally, it would make it harder to remain faithful in other aspects of my real life. And so I've had to kind of like make a certain line. And it's funny because like in the films that I do, I kiss people, and like I certainly don't go around kissing people just like in normal life that aren't my wife. So like you could make the argument, well, you do that in film that you wouldn't agree with doing that just in normal life. And so I get that it's personal to each person and they have to find where that line is for them. And so I would just say like, you have to be honest with yourself of what you're able to do, what your personality is able to do. I've had a lot of friends that have gone on tours and things and like they're separated from their spouse and they want to make it work and it doesn't sometimes, but sometimes it does. Right. So it just depends on like who you are in your situation and just being honest with yourself. But yeah, I mean, I guess I can speak for me, and just say like, no amount of success in the spotlight can compensate for, stepping away from my faith. Like that's just what it comes down to. Like no amount of success. And actually, when I was at this acting school after high school, I had this really spiritual experience where I felt like God was telling me to leave the school. There's a number of reasons for that, but the scripture that kept coming to my mind again and because I would go through these phases of like, well, I could do so much good. Like if I'm in the spotlight and if I'm famous and I'm successful, like I can do so much good. And the scripture that kept coming to mind was, what does it profit a man if he should gain the whole world and lose his own soul? And like, that's the reality of like what it comes down to. It's like no amount of success is worth that, losing your soul. And God's way, the other thing you can take heart in is like God's way is always going to be better than whatever way the world is offering or whatever way you can imagine. And so if you feel like God is directing you a certain way, even if you really, really want to do something else, trust God's way. Like it will be better and it's going to be different than what you imagine, but it will 1000% be better for you in the long run. And why wouldn't it be? Like if you truly believe in God and you believe that he loves you, you believe that he's omniscient, why wouldn't his way be better? Like it will. And so just trust it. And for me, like when I left that school, I was devastated. And I thought to myself, like, there it is. I've given up any hope of doing this dream that I have of like becoming an actor and a singer and all these things. And it wasn't until years after that, after I served a mission and years into, like my married life, that I realized that I had to go through that experience at that young time of my life so that God could tell me, like, you have to choose me no matter what. Like from the very beginning, he had to show me, he had to pave the way for me to get into that school. And then he had to take it away so that he could teach me that lesson that even if you really, really want it, you have to still choose me. And if you do that, I promise it's going to be better. And so I'm so grateful that I learned that lesson early on in my life, because that has served as the foundation and sort of like guidepost for me in every other decision I've made after that when it comes to performing. That no amount of success in the spotlight is worth losing your soul over.
Wow. That's remarkable. I absolutely adore that. And it's so cool because like just earlier this week, I was reading in Old Testament. It was Abram and Lot. And like you said, like I knew so much good. And you read in that story, Lot pitches his tent towards Sodom. And in the next chapter, he's living there. And I think that's such a beautiful allegory for how a lot of people think. They think like, oh, like what you say, like I can do so much good if I can get famous and I can have a voice, a big platform to speak on. But it's like, if you pursue that, if you're pursuing something like that, then the odds are likely that you will end up living in Sodom if you pitch your tent towards there. And I think what you've been able to do too, like, you know, you said, oh, I want to be able to have an influence for God. I can do so much good. And you have. Like, you've been able to pretty much gain all the stuff that you wanted from when you were right before you left on a mission at acting school in a completely different way that you thought was going to take. And I think God knew that.
Totally. It's like I truly feel like I've been able to have my cake and eat it too. And again, it wasn't in the way or the timing that I thought or wanted, but like the fact that I'm able to still perform the ways that I do and to have a family, like to be married to like the most amazing woman, to have amazing kids, to have this life, like I just feel so unbelievably blessed and lucky. And maybe I would have had, you know, the spotlight and more fame and success in that way, but I would have had to compromise other things perhaps. And so again, like if you just trust God, it's going to look different than what you have in your head, but it will always be better.
Yeah. So how is it that you, with a lot of these issues, especially when it comes to your own personal standards, and when it like with theater, with film, there are situations where those things definitely collide. How is it that you set boundaries without burning bridges?
I mean, yeah, I think it starts like on the front end. Like I just won't audition for things that you know, like a lot of times I just won't even audition for things that are rated R, for example, just because I know like the likelihood of there being things in there that I don't really want to do is higher. I've been fortunate to do a lot of these like Hallmark type films, and you know you're pretty safe in those types of movies. And Great American Family, like they're faith based and you know family based. Like they the content is like very much aligned with my standards. And so yeah, I think you just kind of have to pick. You know, like for example, if uh, like the genre of music that you do, you're gonna be maybe more likely to be exposed in a certain environment. Like if you do grunge rock or you do rap or something like that, like chances are you're gonna be playing in bars and you're gonna be in like clubs and so if you're like if you know that if you're in that environment, those environments a lot, and it's gonna negatively affect your soul, then you know you might want to consider that early on so you don't go down that path and like make it harder for yourself to like have to navigate that. um so like for Gentri as an example, like we sing uplifting music and usually to like older people, and so it's like we're not like fortunately we're not having to put ourselves in like potentially difficult or compromising situations. So I guess long story short, like try to avoid putting yourself in difficult situations from the beginning, you know, from the get-go.
So yeah, I like that. Just kind of like have like a standard. that you don't pass. Like I feel like a lot of people they don't plan ahead a lot, especially like our generation. Me and Corwin, we have so many friends who they are living so much in the moment that like they don't realize like they'll find themselves somewhere and they're like, oh crap, like why am I here? I don't want to be here.
Yeah, I mean, you think about like as a teenager, you learn in like Sunday school and stuff, like you gotta make the decision ahead of time. You gotta set your standards ahead of time. Because if you find yourself, let's say, like in a morally law of chastity type compromising situation, and you haven't already decided what your standards are, it's going to be a lot harder to decide in the moment when your hormones are going crazy, like to choose the right thing.
Yeah,
if
you're
you
not
haven't
thinking
already
straight,
committed.
no.
No, like you're like it's too late at that point. Like
It's too late.
and so I think like being honest with yourself that most of us aren't strong enough to resist the natural man, to resist like the natural impulses that we have. And it doesn't have to be morality or law of chastity things. It could be the desire for recognition. Like we're all prideful in some way. It could just be this desire for fame or recognition or approval or whatever. And so if you haven't really committed to your standards before you get yourself in those situations where that becomes an offering that's put in front of you, like it's hard. It's a lot harder to make those in the moment.
Amen. I agree.
Yeah. Casey, we're wrapping up here. Thank you so much for coming on to this. I've got one more question for you as a takeaway for our audience. What is the best and what is the worst advice that you've ever been given?
Man, that's a tough question. I've been given so much good advice. I don't know that I probably have gotten bad advice, but I let it go in one ear and out the other, I guess. Gosh, good advice. Let me think about this. I probably should have thought about this ahead of time. So I'm like, what are like, how do I distill this down? Um, we have so many mentors in our life that help us. Like we truly can't do what we do alone. Um, we don't no person who accomplishes anything does it in a vacuum. Like they have to be surrounded by people who are constantly giving good advice. I don't, for whatever reason, I think about like the cliche that my parents would say, which a lot of people can resonate, like remember who you are.
Yeah, amen. Yeah.
That's like so foundational because if you don't forget that, then you're not going to be blinded by the lures that are out there. So remember who you are, that you're a child of God. You're here for a reason. This life is not the end all be all. It's beautiful and it can be beautiful. But make sure you don't lose sight of the end, of the long-term goal of your existence. So yeah, I don't know on bad advice. Yeah, I mean, maybe that like diet Mountain Dew is good for you because it's mostly orange juice.
It's mostly orange.
That's probably not great advice.
No, I agree. That is terrible advice.
Although that is true, it is mostly orange juice, but I just it doesn't seem like it's the best thing that you should be considering.
All right, wrap it.
Oh, Casey, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. This was
Thanks,
awesome.
guys.
Yeah, it was good to see you again, Casey.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.